Welcome back to the Nightlife Podcast, Season 4, Episode 6. Guys, I have an amazing interview for you today. We are going to be speaking to Tae-Va O'Halloran, better known as the Queen of Clubs. That's also how what her book is called too. This is basically Studio 54. I'd say on steroids a little bit because this is the female version of Studio 54 in England. That's how I feel about it after speaking, with her and after reading her book. Guys, her story, amazing, motivating any woman out there who is thinking about the possibility of ever growing in this industry, owning not just one, but a few different clubs, different venues, grow in the industry, do it for a long time. Seriously, this is a good episode for you. It's motivational. She'll, tell you a few tips and, the way she did it and the way that maybe you should do it too. And definitely is a good one for the guys too, because we need to start listening to women. We need to start paying attention to them in the industry, not just as bartenders or waitresses or hostess. We gotta look at them as equals, and I bet you we are going to end up finding a lot of new potential out there. So anyway, without further ado, I bring in Tae-Va O'Halloran. Welcome to the Nightlife Podcast. How are you?
Thank you. I'm well, thank you. Good to be here.
Awesome. I love that accent, Tae-Va. You have no idea how excited I get when I'm interviewing people on the other side of, the ocean, whatever you want to call it. And also the fact that it is, a completely different time zone.
Early morning for me.
Exactly. And I'm so sorry that I'm making you go through this. I am not a morning person. I was like...
Well,
before I got the call, I was like, I wonder if she's gonna be having coffee. Should I get some tea? Make it very, English.
yeah,
British.
well, you can have a glass of wine.
Tae-Va, so all right, so let's dive in. Why don't you tell our listeners, right away who you are, what you do, or what you have, what
Sure.
you're known for in the industry, pretty much.
So I guess my book, Queen of Clubs, was covering a span of about 15 years, starting off from my very first club, stepping into professional club life, which was a party girl.
Okay.
So it was set in London, East London, so really cool, very gritty, underground clubs. So I started there, traveled my way through, somehow managed to scrape together capital, really big idea, set up my own nightclub in East London, and then progressed to own another and another and another. And then now I work on the other side of the nights, and usually it's more daytime work.
Right.
But it's been, yeah.
When you say the other side of the nights, what can you explain a little bit? What do you mean by that?
Yeah. So as most people who work in the industry, it's grueling, long, exciting, and I'm a mum now, so it is it's a juggle. So we stepped away, and I now work in big activations for booze brands, experiential events, curating art shows, festivals, a lot of the things that I love about the nightlife, which is creating these amazing experiences for people, whether it be music, entertainment, gorgeous clubs, cool experiences. I get to kind of do now for other people, for people to enjoy. So that's really cool. So I'm still working in the industry, but I would say a much tamer version.
Right. Let me ask you a question. You say party girl. What?
Yeah.
What? When you say party girl, everybody that maybe has a different meaning for every person. What would you say defines party girl for you?
Okay, so for me, this is purely my example. When I moved from Sydney, very quiet. I was studying acting, doing an actress, a lot of theatre, had this feeling that I was bored, restless, something else was out there. And consequences kind of changed. I broke up with my boyfriend and jumped on a plane and went to London. Now, this was explosive, exciting, like bars, restaurants, clubs. People went out, they socialized, whereas Sydney's quiet. Maybe you go out on a Saturday night, every couple of weeks. There's no big atmospheric nightlife. And even more so now, which I guess is a different story, which maybe we can talk on later, which is how industry changes. But for me, I landed in London, so it would have been 15 years ago, and it's electric. It was, every party was incredible. Every single night there was something on. And within this tiny little hub of Shoreditch, it got to a point where a lot of people, it's this community, this tiny little ecosystem where everyone was in a band, they were DJing, they're a club promoter, they were a guest girl, photographer, drug dealer, you name it. Every single person was in the industry and out. They were out every single night. And I stepped into it purely because I lived with someone who worked in one of these big clubs, the biggest club in Shoreditch. And, they needed a door girl. So I don't know what you guys call it in the US, but it can be anything from guest girl, door haul, VIP, clipboard, whatever your name is for it. But popped me on the door and I was hooked from day one. It was just a really incredible experience. And then I just, from being someone who went out 5 nights a week, had that kind of Monday off and then something quiet, we went out a lot and had this community of, this is my 20s. So, people were out all the time. And from, so I guess a party girl is someone who's up for going out, it goes from a quiet after work beer to, super club at 5 o'clock in the morning. And just enjoying this really rich, exciting nightlife. And then traveling into working for a really big, tough, hard-ass club owner, and learning everything from him. And then being brought up into the role of promotions and booking manager for the club.
Okay, got it.
So that's really getting, and then I was in. So it was booking up and coming bands like, I don't know if it's going to be a crossover here, but people like Florence and the Machine or Paloma Faith, a lot of really cool, and these were like when there were 10 people in a gig.
Was there any reason why you were the one picked for that job, or was it you that went for it, or?
Oh, it was kind of opportunity, blind ignorance as well of kind of going, yeah, I can do this, and this, this underlying can-do attitude of just stepping up and going, sure. I walked in there and said I can do this, and the guy the club owner always hires young, vibrant people, and they're usually females, which is interesting, who have their finger on the pulse, is how he said. So, where the parties are, who the promoters are, what's going on in town, and tapping into that. So at the time, there was a really strong kind of electronic, dub, dance, heavy movement, and it came with quite repetitive kind of booking and acts. So he wanted to kind of tap into, at the time in London, there was a massive live, lots of cool bands, and wanted to incorporate a lot of up and coming people rather than just booking headline acts. And that was under my suggestion, because you had this budget going on one name and you had to rely on them pulling in the crowd, interacting and promoting, and that just kind of it kind of was losing its charm, especially in somewhere underground like Shoreditch. People didn't want to pay for this cover charge, this experience. They can go to higher capacity, better fitted out clubs for that big DJ experience. These were grotty little underground rooms and different stages, so you can kind of build these atmospheres through different rooms with a band in here. It might be a DJ set by a really cool band, or it might be then late night parties, all kind of put together. So it was a combination of He needed someone. I put my hand up and just jumped in.
Right. So I imagine at that point, the difference between working daytime and nighttime is one thing. How about money wise? Was at that point money a good thing in the nightlife?
Brilliant. Like, unbelievable. So I went from earning minimum wage to being a cashed up 25-year-old. So what came with that was, I guess, my next level commitment to party life, because cash is king.
Right.
And it went from being, they're lower as well, that there's so much money. There used to be, I think, a lot of money in the industry. And I think there is now, definitely, but it was a different world. It was cash cover charges, and it also was a wild club, and it was Rogue, and he was a very creative operator. So it was, the money's exciting and the money's incredible, and it's addictive.
Definitely. I mean, that's one of the things I hear all the time is that part, and it affected me too. I mean, when I got into it, I started. It was more of a hobby thing at first, and I was like, I like to party. Why not throw a few parties over here, over there? I started as a promoter, and it just, it was beautiful. When I started seeing the money, I was like, whoa. Definitely, I think the word addictive goes well with that. So you mentioned something, which is a lot of women are, usually when club owners are hiring people, are looking for women, are looking for girls, for bartenders, for waitressing, cocktail, for the door, even the position that you're talking about of booking even, there's a lot of positions. And maybe from what I see, I don't know what your experience is, it kind of stops at management. It's like, that's as far as it goes. What do you have to say about that?
Loads. So I guess what you covered off is, we're door girls, we're pretty faces, we're fancy dresses, we're people who upsell drinks, we're people who push bottle service. And that is something that instantly I noticed, but instantly fought against, because that's my nature. Because you're saying I can't do what I want to do it. I started DJing to get in really quickly because there's not a lot of female DJs. And with club promoting, Shortage was very progressive. So there's lots of girls club promoting. There was lots of girls DJing. There was lots of girls booking bands, managing bands. So there's this really cool push where, from this collective creative side, I think absolutely there was a lot of girls driving in there. And it was, I would say, I don't think it would be equal, but I think as soon as you start getting into that technical side of it, which is management, structure, moving past that manager, like there was a couple of bar managers, but you would never see the GM, or you'd never see you didn't see it. And I think for me, my experience in clubs was I worked for this one owner, and he had a few venues, and I got to the point where I realized that I wanted to open my own venues, and I had all these ideas, but it was very much when I transitioned from this creative, cool collective of people doing this underground scene into the structure of business plans, applying for finances, speaking to lawyers, solicitors, counselors, negotiating leases. I had a business partner who was male. Okay. And instinctively, always like, hi, nice to meet you. Oh, is this your assistant? Or can I speak to your boss? Can I speak to the owner of the business? It was very much, and as far as from, there's two sides of it, which is that kind of like your comrades in the industry. I don't think that there's no gender difference whatsoever. It's like if you're doing something cool and progressive, you're in. If you're friendly, bubbly, cool and kind, you're in. If you're great to party with, if you've got, great personality, or you've got something cool to offer, I think that's there's something for everyone, because you can make your own life, and that's what I love. But as soon as I hit into the business, and I cover this up a lot in the book, it was always very can I speak to your boss or can I speak to the owner? Even when we had police visits,
Right.
Middle of running the club, I'm there running the club. The police would come down for a licensing check.
Right.
And I speak to the manager. I'm the owner.
The relationship with this owner that you were with, for a while, how long?
Yeah.
How long were you part of that team?
So I was with him for 3 years. I was on a sponsored visa for 3 years because it was quite it was difficult because I'm Australian and I moved to London. I was there for 15 years. So he sponsored me, but I'd been in that country for a few more years, kind of on the party scene. And then I went to opening my own club. And things went really messy with the owner. I don't know. I was unfortunately arrested.
Okay. Sorry, they went bad as we're talking relationship with you, or things bad for him in general.
My relationship with him,
right?
Which was, to be fair, it was a pattern, which is people would build up all of these really cool club nights, promoter contacts, and then they would realize that actually, he was a really unpleasant man and things get sour and then he turns over and gets something new and fresh. And there's new music coming in, there's new content. So he's not stupid. He, brings in whoever's on the scene at the time. He brings them in loads of cash, loads of, and it's a 20-hour a day job.
Yeah.
When you're working in that kind of thing, in that up and coming role, it's very much, you're in the office, bang on, it was 10 o'clock, a bit relaxed. Bang on 10 o'clock, booking bands, promoters, negotiating. In those days it was MySpace. But banging socials, creating artwork, working with designers. So you did a full day's work, then you went home, got changed, and come back to the club.
Right.
So it's a super unhealthy lifestyle when you are potentially, living for that kind of night experience. And then you go around and do it again. And there's burnout. As everyone knows, there's a massive burnout rate. So things ended really badly with him.
Let me ask you something before you go on to that. How long did it take you, or was it related in any way, to go from party girl to this job and being in the industry, doing all that hard work that you're talking about, and falling into I believe you talk in the book about an addiction. That is it due to the nightlife? Is it not? What's your story in there?
2000, absolutely % nightlife. So I think it quickly became apparent how fun the nightlife is and was. I think there's 2 levels of it, which is that full party mode, but then it turns into long slog, got to get to the shift, and there's this catch-22. I'm tired, something's sorted out, then I need to relax, and I want to party, and then I need to go to work. So I'm very open in the book about, I guess, my addiction relationship, so with drink and also drugs. So for me, it was very much, it escalated as fun. I got arrested, but I wouldn't say that was even, I was a random search and I happened to have cocaine in my cigarettes, and was arrested for that. And it meant that I got let go from my job. And it was actually, I think he was thinking that this was the best thing ever. And actually turned out that the police said, they told him the situation, that my boss was letting me go and I was on a visa. And they said, well, look, we're not going to charge you. We're going to let you go. We'll go talk to the boss because we can't do that.
Wow.
So I was like, okay. So that kind of should have given me a reality check. It clearly didn't. And then I stepped away and then worked into my own clubs. And very much the stress, pressure, need to perform, the real, I would say, addiction started when I started working for myself. Because first I had no boss, no one to say, hey, you've got to be here at X, Y, Z. Also, what are you doing? There's no one, I wasn't accountable to anyone. It was just me, and I was creating these incredible experiences.
Before we jump straight up all the way over there, let me ask you a question. You say accidental entrepreneur. Why
Yeah,
why accidental? I mean, from
because I tumbled into it.
okay,
It just tumbled, and I think I never sat down and went, "This is what I want to do, and this is how I want to." These are my, my 5-year plan. I want
right,
to work in the industry, open my own venue. It just all rolled and it tumbled and it grew. And I think the word accidental potentially might be a bit flippant, because it's really difficult to sum up. I don't feel like an entrepreneur. I don't feel like someone who can go, hey, I'm someone who is a business professional in the nightlife industry. Although clearly I was. I read back the book and go, how did you do all this?
yeah,
Um, but I also think I want to, it's accidental because I think it just rolled and it escalated and it just built momentum and momentum and momentum. And it also, um, it also kind of just, I think it just explains that a lot of it is, it's not sheer luck, any of it, because I planned as I went, but there was no 5-year plan.
right. I get it. Now, there's one part that's a little boring, but but you actually went through it with it, which is actually getting money to do this. Putting money together to do something like this,
And if that was boring, that was a stripped down version as well. It was tedious.
right? I mean, because anybody that loves this industry, that's not something that we love. That's not an area that we
Oh,
love at all.
it's something that I think about a lot, and I think about it now more as an adult.
Hmm.
I see myself now as an adult. I was definitely not an adult doing that.
Hmm.
I feel like the chances now for people to open their own venues are almost slim to none. I don't know what it's like in the US, but in the UK and Australia, to get any funds to open a nightlife venue, it's impossible. It's almost impossible to get it because it's a high risk. They call it a high risk industry, but I guess we know it is. Because um, it's a financial, it's a roller coaster. And I think one thing I was lucky about is I got in early. I
Right.
got in before they started making it, but literally to the day when they started bringing in match funding. So it was like we scraped together this money, pulling $10,000 here, 15,000 here, maxing credit cards, using that to then get a loan, to use that to then get a bigger loan, and it built that way. And you can't do that now because they had really
Right.
strict protocols and procedures and how you do it. But raising the capital was impossible, and we never could raise enough. So we would always go and fingers crossed. We would run into a busy, we would build it so bang, we were busy, and we had to be busy.
Right.
And raising the capital, we were lucky. We met someone who believed in us and believed that we were onto something different because we were pitching this mixed use venue. So it was this incredible 18th century Turkish bathhouse. So a very small, beautiful, opulent, tiny building. It looks like something like a tiny gingerbread house, like gorgeous. And then it went down, and underneath was the big Turkish bathhouse. So big vaulted rooms, all marble, and it just spread underground. And we said to them, instead of just having this night, because I had the idea of this amazing opulent kind of dinner cabaret burlesque, but like really progressive stuff. And then it had a 5 a.m. license. So really amazing club. So we then kind of turned the bank version on its head and said, okay, during the day we'll turn, which actually was my, reception area, coat check, VIP kind of entrance, this beautiful entrance. But we said during the day we'll make it a cafe. We'll make pizza, serve pizza from there because it was in the middle of the city. And as soon as we started bringing food in, they were like, oh, okay, all right. They, rather than building this hedonistic vision of really was what I was planning, the idea of we played the game to get the money.
Right.
But also, I think you're committed to building food into. I think food is such an important. Like for now, I would love to go out for like a really cool meal, entertainment, later drinking,
Right.
dancing, cocktails. That's amazing. But I think that's a different experience to clubs.
Mm-hmm.
And I
Completely.
find you I knew how to run clubs, hardcore, get people through the door. It's exciting, electric, amazing. Food is also another whole thing. So I think it was that double-edged sword. It allowed us to have cash.
Right. How is? Let me ask you something. I think I lost your voice there for a second. How is your relationship with that person that you say that believed in you then? Is that something that still stands? Were you guys able to, do well and continue that relationship, or?
Yeah, so it was a person within like an institutional banking lending. So it was that relationship that got us the hook and then allowed us to do the next venue as well. So we were able to then go, hey, let's do this again, but a different version. But I guess the person that believed in me as well was my business partner. Because he didn't have any industry experience. He didn't have any of the knowledge that I had quickly accrued over this period of time.
About how old were you when this was happening, by the way?
So 28 is when I started, 28, 29.
28, 29, and basically, hey, I used to be a door girl. I was DJ'd a little. I did some booking of some bands. The experience was with one venue alone, only basically, or well, not one venue, but one owner,
That's right.
and different venues. So your experience was that, and then the other person did not have any.
That's right. And I would also, now you're saying that, and I say this in the book, it was so limited. I was like, I know everything about the industry. I really know what I'm doing. When I write in the book, I'm just like, as I write it, I was writing and I just look back and I'm like, what are you doing? Like, no, just stop. I was so far in. It was limited. You just kept it up. I was a girl who enjoyed going out. I'm a girl who enjoyed music and bands and socializing and connecting.
Right. But it is one of the most important. It is one of the most important parts of this industry. In the end, is that person. I mean, I was just recently watching the Studio 54 documentary on Netflix, and I'm listening to a lot of this, and I related to a lot of it, and now I'm listening to your story, and it relates too.
Yeah. I mentioned that I believe that they're my pseudo parents,
right.
The guys, Steve Rebel.
To me, the fact that they were around for 2 years only,
I know,
was
because I never thought that I had a book. I felt like it was an exciting life, and it was a roller coaster, and I gripped on for sheer will for so much of it. And I hadn't watched the Studio 4 or thought about it in so long, and it was only just when I was writing that I watched a documentary that recently came out, and I just thought, God, yeah, it's just people who have creative visions.
Right.
They make it happen. And I think, my lack of experience was made up by balls and sheer determination to do something, and also like absolute belief in my own creativity. Right. And that's what keeps me working now. It's creativity and these experiences and connections you have. And although I sorely miss it because there's something so amazing in club culture,
right?
I do think it's special, and I'm hoping that people can continue it because it's scary in these days.
I mean, there's an evolution. Things come back, and this. Yeah. I mean, we don't know what's going to happen with this whole issue now, but I don't, not forever, and we'll figure out new ways if we end up having to, build an outdoor way of doing this or whatever it may be. There will be some.
It's about, and I think the whole industry is about, you take it on, you adapt and you adjust because you have to.
Correct.
And it was like I was meant to be going on a tour, going back to the UK to tour this book, and it's all cancelled. Wow. It's all cancelled. So I created with a designer an augmented reality actual book launch. So, anywhere in the world, people can enter my space. It's got my special wallpaper, which I designed for the bathhouse. It's got all these amazing, 360, all these thousands of disco balls. And, and it's like people, I think if you're creative and you're determined, you will overcome anything. And I think that's what this amazing night, I think Nightlife has this. It's a survivor.
Right. Let me ask you something again, going back to the woman issue. And it is a conversation I recently had. And I wanted to touch on it again because some people say, yeah, but I mean, those girls that are there, they have the same opportunities, they just don't take them. Um, I've been in it. I know I know that is not really the case. Um, I do understand that a lot of the women are being looked, for, or added to the team for exactly that, for the
Yeah.
looks, for, making sure the guys are having a good time, whatever, upselling, like you said, all those
Yeah.
things. I've been around 30 years in the industry pretty much, and I have only worked with two female owners in 30 years.
Yeah.
Okay. And one was married to the partner, basically.
Yeah. Right.
The other one was a GM who became owner.
Mm.
And so it's super, super rare. And man,
Yeah.
GMs, maybe three. That's it,
Yeah.
in all these years. It is crazy. On the other hand, every time there's a problem, they're going to a woman to have to find a solution for that
Yeah.
problem.
Yeah.
And you guys have what it takes. I am trying myself to encourage more women to step up, up the
Well,
ladder
well,
and you know,
I think that's your responsibility and it's everyone's to throw the
right,
ladder down, throw
right,
it down for the next person. How can we help? And I think for me, I think I survived because of my tenacity and my female instinct, which is I created incredible clubs because I had this attention to detail, customer service, all of these tiny little things
right,
made these overwhelming experiences, but also as well, I threw the ladder down for other girls. And because when there was an opportunity to manage and help and promote, I would. But I have to also say something that people forget about, and the reason why women don't get brought up into these larger roles is because we have children, right? And it doesn't go with nightlife,
right,
right? And I
right,
think people forget that. No one wants to say it, but it's like I was a female in a very small operation, and even I was like, okay, if I hire someone for my marketing role, knowing in my mind that I'm going to have a baby soon, I'm like, what if they have a baby at the same time? There's going to be no one in the office, and I'm a female. I'm trying to encourage this, and I'm worried about, well, I'm going to be on maternity leave. What if there's two people and there's no one to work? And I thought about it later in life, and I worked until I was 8.5 months pregnant, and I was in the club.
hmm,
Literally, I was on the phone, up until I was literally my waters broke, and because that was my club, and the moment I felt like every time I stepped away from the club, it would fall to pieces, and it was because there were such small hubs of energy and creativity that they needed these performers. They needed the club photography to be totally combed perfect. And I think, I had my first and only child, and I worked that club every day during that pregnancy. I vomited into a bin,
right,
while I'm pregnant. There's someone puking in the club toilets doing
right,
whatever it is. And do you know what I mean? So it was and I wouldn't have done it for someone else's club, but it was my investment in
of
my
course,
future. Yeah. And
right,
then, once I had my baby, I then realized my husband took paternity leave. He took 9 months off. So I literally had my baby in 3 months. I went back to work, you
right,
know, and I had the luxury of him being able to do that. And then the moment he was back to work, my baby's at work with me. She's, we're there during the day. She's in the bouncer while I'm doing marketing plans. I
right,
literally do shifts in the night. I would rush home after doing the day in the office with him, with my little girl. And then my husband would come home. We'd pass each other in the night. I was like, there you go. And I'd run it all ready for work.
right,
The last thing you feel like doing when you've got a baby under at 1 year old is going to a nightclub, working. And then I come up 6 o'clock, wake up, she's awake. So
right.
it was so intense. But there has to be other ways for women to be able to work, not just this industry, any industry. And I
In
think
general, right,
in general, I think that's why there's not women in these top level roles, because they require so much energy, commitment, and it's not that when you have a baby you don't have these things. They're both such big commitments. So I think finding a way to support women after they have children, they would still be in the industry.
Right.
But it's finding that balance of going, okay, let's get all these girls from these roles. If they're interested, you've got to be passionate. But
Right.
it's also a great way to earn cash while you're at uni,
Right.
while you're studying.
So I know that you did your fair share of partying before you got into it and while you were in it.
Yeah.
And I know you've had some fun times, met some fun people that you'll tell us about a little bit also. But how much should people control? Like if and I'm not talking about women only, in general in this industry. What do you think people should really be doing now that you are an adult, like you say? Is there anything, or do you think you would do everything exactly the same way, and or would you try to maybe, slow it down a little bit on that?
Yeah. So I've had this conversation in my head, my husband, over time, and I think there's, you can't go back and change anything.
Right.
But I go back and I think, what would have been different if I changed? And I think it's a double-edged sword. I feel like I plowed through. I mean, the party, there was two different careers there. The party girl, I wouldn't change any of that because I did all those cool, when I was promoting and booking, all of that stuff went hand in hand. And I think, if anything, my partying benefited that. Connections and relationships. But then from a business owner, I think, look, going back, if I'd done it sober, which I now have the power of, I feel like there's so much strength in that. But I also think, drugs and alcohol fuels the drive to keep going. I had to keep going. There's so many opportunities where I wasn't able to give up. I had to do another day. I had to firefight another problem. And look, I think if you handed me a club now, I'd be able to smash it out of the park. I would thoroughly enjoy it. But I think that I think they're so intertwined, and I don't think there's a level of, I think if you can separate your work life and then party life, I think that's I guess would be my only advice to a former self. And I didn't party at work. I just kind of methodically got through with whatever the tools I needed.
Right.
But I think I got through it with, a level of addiction that kind of was functioning.
Right.
And it wasn't until later that I kind of realized that these habits that I picked up weren't serving me, and they're actually damaging to the rest of my life.
Definitely. How long has it been since you've been out of ownership?
Yeah, so I've been out for 4 years.
4 years. I know you're still, doing, you're in the industry in a way because you're producing events and all that kind of stuff, right? But do you miss that smell?
Yeah, I miss the sounds, the punch in your heart.
Yes.
Yeah, really loud sound. And I didn't realize I missed that till about a year ago, when I realized the loudness and the moment where you can't hear anyone else talk and it's so loud, and the vibration, and walking through that club when it's all going well, you can't beat it.
Right. Yeah.
And there's part of it I miss every day, but there's part of it I'm very happy to hand over to the next generation.
Right. Right. So yes, in a way, and by the way, a lot of what you're saying relates to my story. I started when I was 18 as a promoter. Money wise, $50 my dad gave me to open the bank account, pretty much. Ended up owning 10 different clubs here and one in Colombia. Colombia, we were just investors. There was other people running it, which was probably one of the funnest things to do, to just watch others run it. They were 4 recovered alcoholics that were running it, as a matter of fact.
Yeah. I bet they did a great job.
Say that again?
Did they do a good job?
They did an amazing job.
Yeah, I imagine.
I mean, one of the best things was the fact that they never drank any of my liquor.
That's the best thing. And I think that's something I look back on, and I mentioned this in the book. There's so many amazing managers out there, and it's like, if they could just not let their party life and the influences of the industry permeate and penetrate their work, they'd be brilliant. But then I'm like, I'm the worst, you know. And it's like, I think back now, life is easier without drinking alcohol. Nightclubs would be easier. And I
Right.
think the idea of having four ex-alcoholics running a venue would be my dream.
Right.
Yeah.
And so now I have three kids, and I basically, what I've been doing lately is helping people, you know, learn about the industry, not lose what, the old school soul of it,
Yeah.
and just keep it fun, and making sure that they learn from our mistakes as much as
Sure.
we can help not lose it, because I hear so many things that are in the direction of the nightlife disappearing. I mean,
Yeah.
I always see it as an evolution of it, but you know, but I mean, it's not gonna go back to what it was. Not meaning that it's not gonna be good. It may end up
Yeah.
being better for the new
Yeah.
for them. Every generation is gonna be in love with something different. As
I think that this generation do want something different.
oh,
And
100%.
it's their aspirations are different, but also their lifestyle choices are really different. This
Yes.
generation,
Yeah.
we were all about alcohol and hedonism. They're very much also into health, wellness. A
Right.
lot of millennials don't, they choose not to drink. And I think there is going to be, and this is the brilliant thing, is that there's all these different people who come up through the night and they want different things, and hopefully it will evolve. But one thing I think, though, is that I've still got a lot of friends who have venues in the
Hmm.
UK, and they're just, a lot of them have made it through by adapting, but a lot of them are just falling by
Right.
because, increasing rents. If you're in areas like, somewhere like Shoreditch, East London, it was very much like a downtown LA, so it was very underground, and people have these small venues, and then
Right.
developers will come in, and then the price rises, and you can't keep. We all know when you've got a sweet spot in a club, there is definitely a lot of money to make. But if this is a passion and you're starting it on maybe a shoestring budget, it's you're an owner operator, the margins are tight.
Hmm.
And I
Correct.
think the moment that something like someone increases the rent, your capacity gets minimized by the police and council, whatever, everything you're constantly dodging and moving every single day to a new set of rules.
Yeah. 100%. 100%. Let's hope everybody, comes out on the right side of this. Definitely. It's
I
not,
think
it's,
maybe they'll be more inspired and more passionate about something
yes.
that's been momentarily taken away from them. And
Hmm.
I just actually wrote an article about this, about, is this the curtain call on the night? And I don't think it is. I think as we know it, but I think potentially this time away
Hmm.
might reignite this flame of like people going, that's right, I like to go out. People are sitting at home on the couch drinking red wine these days.
Right.
But I maybe those dynamic cool cocktail bars and people wanting to see live music, like hopefully will re-inspire them, is what I'm hoping for the
Oh,
next.
for sure. One of the good things, I was actually thinking about this the other day, is the playing, the field is being leveled again. So it's kind of like,
Yeah,
okay, it's redo, restart, and everybody has the same, chips on the table.
very
Um,
interesting.
so who knows who may come up with the greatest idea at this moment in time, you know?
Also, as well, these quiet times allow people to think, create, reshuffle. What are their plans? It might be that they go, "Hey, I think there's a need for this or a want for this," and I know this time has given me a breather from real life, and I've come up with these new directions that I'm taking my life and new experiences and creative ventures. And I think sometimes you don't have space or time to come up with these. What's the alternative? What if
Right.
we didn't go to normal? What does that look like? And I hope that everyone comes out having time to think and maybe just reshuffle.
Right. Well, Tava, I want to thank you so much for your time today. And I want, before we go, for you to tell everybody out there, one last thought, one last, piece of advice to anybody who's out there, especially a woman
Yeah,
who's thinking of maybe, getting into this, strong, really, maybe becoming an
yeah.
owner one day and building their own thing.
Look, I think my piece of advice for any females interested in the industry is be better than your male counterparts. You know, be brilliant and be passionate and believe in yourself. And no, because the thing is, I turned all of this around because I just purely said, I'll do that job, put my hand up, and I did it. But I made sure I studied what's the market doing, what's the industry doing, who are the people I can use for inspiration, aspiration, and looking to who is doing really exciting things. Learn, watch, look, listen, put yourself out there, but be brilliant. Don't just expect it all. Like that sense of entitlement, well, I should deserve a chance because I'm a female in this industry. That don't rest on those laurels. You need to be active and really engage and believe in yourself.
That is a good piece of advice. Tava O'Halloran, Queen of Clubs. Tell me about the book before we go a little bit.
Okay. So it's very much a white-knuckled, strap-in binge read, I've been told. But I've also been told that it needs to be made into a movie. So let's see.
Oh boy.
Um,
And
but
who would play you?
who knows? Basically, it's a journey through the three main themes are drugs, nightclubs, and love. So all the way through this, you have all of these incredible club adventures, and they are from the great glamorous parts, but also the reality is blocked toilets, bins, recycling, rotering, all of those things that you actually don't think about. The funny nitty-gritty details from behind the scene. What happens on the other side of the swing door where the busboys go. It's all of the behind the scene action as well as all the glittery, glorious parts.
Right.
And then it kind of goes through this journey of addiction. And it also has a love story through it.
There you go.
So
I imagine they all intertwine.
they all do. And as my creative partner is also my husband, who at the time was a DJ, now he's a music producer. So, there's a happy ending.
Awesome. Love it. Where can people get it?
Amazon.
There you go.
I'll give you a link to get it directly.
All right, awesome. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to add it to my website also so that people can find it there. It's only my book usually. I'm not even going to bring my book up in this episode because I want to make sure people get yours. I like the story. I want to read it. I want to get it in my hands very soon.
Also, well, you can pop in there my details. If there's any females that have questions, they can absolutely shoot them through.
Awesome. Guys, again, thank all of you for watching. And is there anywhere they can follow you or anything? Just,
Yeah, on Instagram, at Queen of Clubs Book, QOC.
Awesome. Tava, again, thank you so much. And I'll see you guys next week.
Bye.